We don't attract what we say. We attract what we are. There's a silence that exists beneath all our efforts to speak, to affirm, to visualize, and in that silence, something much deeper is heard. I want to begin by inviting you to pause, not to think, not to plan, but just to feel. Because before wealth shows up in your bank account, it has to first show up in your nervous system. Before abundance walks into your life, it must first be felt in your breath, in your bones, in the still places you rarely listen to. You see, the universe isn't eavesdropping on your words. It's tuning into your frequency, and your frequency isn't what you pretend to feel when you paste a smile on your face. It's not the fake positivity you force when fear is bubbling underneath. No, your true frequency is raw, honest, sometimes messy, but it's always real. So I want to ask you something gently, without judgment. Right now, what are you really feeling? Not what you're trying to feel, not what you wish you felt, but what is truly alive in you. Because the frequency you carry is not in your goals. It's not in your vision board. It's in the quality of your attention. It's in the way you breathe, the way you open your eyes in the morning, the way your body leans toward fear or leans toward trust. We've all been told to go after success, to chase the dream, but chasing implies it's outside of you. It implies it's running away from you. And what you chase, you affirm, you do not yet have. But what if wealth isn't something to pursue? What if it's something to allow? Like sunlight through an open window, it doesn't need to be forced. It only needs you to stop closing the curtains. In truth, you don't attract what you want. You attract what you believe you already are. And that belief isn't always conscious. In fact, it often hides in the smallest of moments, in the tension in your chest when you pay a bill, in the way you look at someone who's more successful, in the tiny thought that whispers, maybe I'm not enough. But the good news is, frequency is not fixed. You are not doomed to repeat the old signal forever. Because you, my friend, are not a radio that only receives. You are also a transmitter. And every day, you are broadcasting something through your emotions, through your presence, through the quiet echo of how you feel when no one is watching. So the real question is not, how do I get rich? The real question is, what is the signal I'm sending out, even when I'm not trying? When you embody scarcity, when every cell in you tightens with worry, you send out a signal that says, I don't have enough. And the field mirrors it back, not as punishment, but as a faithful reflection of your internal state. But when you soften into trust, when you breathe as if you're already supported, when you move through the day as if life is conspiring with you, not against you, then you become magnetic. Not because you've earned it, but because you've finally aligned with it. Wealth, you see, is not a prize. It's a frequency, and that frequency is felt long before it's seen. So if you're here, hoping to change your life, begin. Not with what you say, not with what you do, but with how you feel, because your feeling is the first frequency, and everything else is just an echo. Jeden, money doesn't answer prayer. It answers frequency. There's a truth that's difficult to swallow at first, but once it lands, it changes everything. You can pray every night with all your heart. You can light candles, recite affirmations, ask, plead, evenbeep. But if beneath those words, the energy you carry is fear, then the universe doesn't hear the words, it hears the fear. You see, money isn't sentimental. It's vibrational. It's not judging you. It's not deciding whether you're worthy or not. It's simply responding to the signal you're transmitting beneath your voice, beneath your plans, beneath your prayers. It's like sending a message through a radio tower. You might say, I am abundant, over and over. But if the frequency you're broadcasting is still tangled in doubt, lack, or shame, the signal doesn't match the words. And that's where most people get stuck. They pray for wealth, while vibrating scarcity. They hope for abundance, while embodying resistance, and then they wonder why nothing changes. But I want to say this with softness, not judgment, because I've lived it. 2. There were years in my life where I thought I was being spiritual by praying more, by working harder on myself, by asking the universe again and again for a breakthrough. But what I didn't realize is that I was still praying from the perspective of someone who didn't yet believe they were supported. I was asking for money like a beggar, pleading for something outside myself. Instead of tuning into the power already inside, imagine a tuning fork. It doesn't force sound, it simply resonates, and the universe is a great field of resonance. It doesn't need your effort, it needs your alignment. So if you say, "I want more money," but your body still tightens when you think of your bills. If you say, "I am open to receiving," but deep down you still feel unworthy of having more, then money hears the vibration of your unworthiness, not your words. And this isn't about guilt. It's not your fault. It's simply how energy works. It responds to coherence. It reflects back the quality of your inner state, not to punish, but to teach. And the beautiful thing about frequency is that it's always shifting. You don't have to be stuck. You don't have to pretend. You simply have to become aware. So, what if just for today you stop trying to make money come, and instead, soften? What if you allowed your nervous system to settle? What if you breathed slower, felt safer, let go of the frantic need to prove your worth? Because the paradox is this: the moment you stop needing money from a place of fear is often the moment it begins to arrive from a place of flow. I've seen this happen in my own life, not through force, but through frequency, not through striving, but through surrender. When I stopped broadcasting lack, the field no longer mirrored lack back to me. You don't attract what you pray for, you attract what you feel like when you're not praying. Money isn't waiting for you to say the right words. It's waiting for you to remember who you are. Not a struggler, not a victim, but a being of energy, of creation, of alignment. And when you begin to really feel that truth, money, like everything else in this universe, simply responds, not because it loves you more, but because you've finally stopped pushing it away with the frequency of fear. So today, if your heart is tired of trying, try something gentler. Don't pray for money. Become the vibration that welcomes it. And in that shift, everything begins to change. 2. Don't wait to be rich to feel rich. There's a quiet illusion that runs deep in our collective story. A belief that says, "I'll feel abundant once I have more. More money, more security, more proof that I've made it." And so we wait. We hold our breath until the bank account grows. We delay peace. We postpone joy, as if worthiness is something we must earn by collecting enough commas, tickets, and validations. But here's what I learned the hard way. Reality doesn't work like that. Life doesn't mirror your future bank balance. It mirrors the energy you're holding now. You see, the field around you. The quantum field is not responding to your potential wealth. It's responding to your present state of being. And the truth is, if you keep waiting to feel rich until you are rich, you never get there. Because the feeling keeps moving just out of reach, like a mirage on a desert road. You chase it, you work harder, you achieve more, and yet somehow, the internal drought remains. That was my story for years. I believed that once I crossed a certain income threshold, once I finally made it, I could relax. I could enjoy life. I could feel full. I could breathe. But what I discovered painfully, humbly, is that peace never arrives through achievement. It arrives through alignment, because richness is not a number. It's a state. It's not about what you have. It's about how you hold what you have. I remember the morning that truth landed in my chest like a quiet thunder. I was sitting alone with my coffee, staring out the window, and nothing had changed in my bank account. But I stopped running for just a moment, and in that stillness, something opened. I noticed the way the light poured through the leaves. I felt the warmth of the mug in my hands, and I realized I already had access to something precious, a richness that wasn't bought, but felt. That moment was wealth, because wealth begins in awareness, in gratitude, in choosing to tune into the frequency of enough, even when the world around you still whispers, "Not yet." It's like tuning a radio. If you keep twisting the dial, waiting for a certain song to play before you feel good, you'll keep missing it. But if you become the frequency of that joy, now, if you hum the tune anyway, the station finds you. This is not about pretending. It's not about ignoring your real financial responsibilities or struggles. It's about no longer using them as a reason to disconnect from your own power. Because that disconnection, that internal drought, is what keeps the cycle going. The irony is, the more you wait to feel abundant, the longer abundance waits for you. So what if you flip the script? What if, instead of asking, "When will I finally feel rich?" you asked, "How can I feel rich right now?" In the smallest ways. Maybe it's in how you pour your tea. Maybe it's in the way you walk slowly, intentionally, as if you have nowhere to rush. Maybe it's in allowing yourself to rest without guilt, or savoring the food you used to eat in a hurry. These are not luxuries. These are frequencies. And the quantum field listens closely. It doesn't calculate your net worth. It calibrates to your felt sense of worthiness. So today, don't wait. Don't postpone the richness of this breath, this moment, this, now. Because when you stop delaying the feeling of abundance, you stop delaying abundance itself. And slowly, quietly, the world outside will begin to reflect the wealth you finally allowed yourself to feel within. 3. It's not the action that creates money, but the belief behind it. There's something humbling about realizing you can be doing everything right on the outside, following the plans, showing up, putting in the effort, and still feel like you're getting nowhere. You've probably been there, haven't you? You worked hard. You said all the affirmations. You launched the project, the product, the idea, and yet the results didn't come. Or if they did, they were fleeting, uneven, unsatisfying. It can be so easy to assume the problem is with the action itself, that you need a better plan, a sharper strategy, a more proven path. But I want to offer you a different lens. What if the action wasn't the issue? What if the real power, or the lack of it, was coming from what you believed while you acted? You see, in this quantum field we live in, action is not primary. Vibration is. The universe doesn't just respond to what you do. It responds to who you are while you're doing it. And that subtle distinction changes everything. I've met people who built their entire business from a place of fear, every move calculated, every launch drenched in anxiety. They were doing the right things, but they were doing them with the energy of lack, of doubt, of "I hope this works, because I'm not okay if it doesn't." And that frequency, it speaks louder than any marketing plan ever could. On the other hand, I've witnessed the quiet magic of someone taking small, even humble actions, but doing so from a place of deep alignment, of trust, of knowing their worth wasn't hanging on the outcome. And somehow, those little actions rippled out. They multiplied. They were met by life with ease and synchronicity. It wasn't about what they did. It was about what they believed. Because belief is the soil, action is the seed. You can plant all day, but if the soil is dry with doubt, the seed will struggle. But when belief is rich, full of quiet certainty, the smallest action can blossom into something far beyond logic. I had to learn this lesson through my own setbacks. There was a time I kept pushing, forcing my way through, thinking that if I just did more, life would reward me. But every time I acted from a place of, "I have to do this or I'll fail," the results came back heavy, tense, or not at all. One day, I paused. I asked myself not, what should I do next? But what energy am I doing this from? And that question changed everything. Because once I started moving from trust instead of tension, from inspiration instead of insecurity, money began to show up in ways I couldn't have planned. Clients came with ease. Ideas flowed. And for the first time, I felt like I was working with life, not against it. Now, this isn't about being passive. It's not about sitting back and waiting. It's about choosing the frequency first and letting your actions flow from that space. When you act from lack, the universe mirrors more lack. But when you act from faith, from the quiet, knowing that you are already connected to all that you need, then each step becomes a signal, not a desperate call, but a declaration: I trust. I believe. I already am. And the field responds, because in the quantum realm, the most magnetic thing you can do is act like it's already done. So the next time you take a step toward your vision, pause it first. Feel your own energy. Is it rooted in fear or freedom? Is it coated in doubt or trust? Because it's not just the action that shapes your path. It's the belief breathing underneath it. And when you shift that belief even slightly, you change not only what you receive, but who you become while receiving it. 4. Frequency is not something you raise. It's something you remember. There's a quiet mistake many of us make on this journey. We think we have to struggle our way into a higher frequency, as if alignment is something to be conquered, as if inner peace is a peak we climb, breathless and aching, hoping to catch a glimpse of stillness once we get there. But frequency is not a summit. It's not an achievement. It's a remembrance. You see, beneath all the noise, the doubt, the fear, the stories we've repeated to ourselves for decades, there is a clarity that has always been here. There is a tone, a hum, a resonance in you that has never stopped singing. And it doesn't need fixing. It just needs to be heard again. I've met so many beautiful souls who are exhausted, not from life, but from trying to be better, trying to vibrate higher, trying to be more spiritual. And somewhere along the way, they forget that what is true doesn't need to be forced. The sun doesn't try to shine. The ocean doesn't try to be vast. And you, in your essence, don't need to try to be aligned, because you already are. What gets in the way isn't your worthiness. It's not that you're too wounded or too far behind. It's simply the static of untrue thoughts. Thoughts that tell you you're separate, unworthy, incomplete. Imagine a radio playing in the background. It's always been tuned to the frequency of wholeness. But over time, life adds layers. Dust, static, interference. Not because the signal has changed, but because your attention has drifted to the noise. And so the invitation is not to work harder to become aligned. It's to soften, to stop tightening your grip on becoming better, to stop treating your consciousness like a self-improvement project. You don't raise your frequency through strain. You raise it by releasing what was never yours to carry. Every thought that says, I'm not there yet. Every feeling that says, I must try harder. Every belief that says, only when I fix myself will I be free. Let them go. Because the irony is, the more you try to be high frequency, the more you confirm the belief that you're not. The more you chase alignment, the more you affirm you're out of it. But when you pause, when you breathe, when you allow your shoulders to drop, your jaw to unclench, your heart to stop defending, something happens. You begin to remember, not a concept, not a theory, but a lived, embodied knowing that peace is not far away. That clarity is not earned. That frequency is not a goal. It's the place you return to when you stop running from this moment. And in that return, the things you were trying to attract, the money, the healing, the clarity, they begin to flow, not because you pushed harder, but because you matched the current that's been flowing to you all along. You didn't create abundance. You reunited with it. So the next time you feel off track, Don't rush to fix it. Don't reach for another practice, another mantra, another distraction. Sit still, close your eyes, and ask, what would remain if I stopped trying to be more than I am? You may find that what remains is the frequency itself, the one that never needed to be adjusted, only revealed, the one that lives beneath every anxious thought, the one that knows how to carry you home, if only you'll listen. 5. Each thought is a declaration, and the universe is listening. There's something we rarely pause to consider. Every thought we think is a signature, a silent agreement, a declaration sent out into the quantum field, not a metaphor, not a poetic idea, but an actual energetic imprint. When you think to yourself, I always struggle with money, what you're really doing is signing a contract, one that the universe, in its quiet neutrality, honors with complete devotion. It doesn't judge, it doesn't debate, it simply echoes back to you what you're emitting. It's like a mirror, but not the kind that reflects your face. It reflects your belief. And here's the humbling part. The more emotionally charged the thought is, the deeper it gets etched into the frequency. Think of your thoughts like seeds. Some are casual, floating by with the wind. Others are dropped into fertile soil with the weight of emotion. And those grow fast, especially if the emotion is fear, lack, or desperation. You don't manifest what you want. You manifest what you keep affirming through thought, feeling, and repetition. I've lived those days. You know, when I'd open the fridge and silently whisper, there's never enough. When I'd check my bank balance and mutter, how am I going to make it? I didn't realize it then, but I was sending out telegrams into the field, day after day, saying, this is my truth. This is what I believe. Please confirm it for me. And the universe, in all its precision, said, as you wish. You see, the quantum field doesn't respond to hope. It responds to expectation. And expectation is not in your words, it's in your tone of being. Imagine walking through a hallway of doors. Each door leads to a different version of your financial reality. Some filled with struggle, some with overflow, some with quiet contentment. And the key to each, it's the thought you just had. The one you let linger. The one you charged with emotion and replayed 5 times today. Thoughts are not passive. They are invitations. And the universe RSVPs every single one. This isn't about guilt. It's not about blaming yourself for every rough patch. It's about awareness. Gentle, loving awareness. Because when you know that your thoughts are not just noise but instruments, you start to play them with more care. You slow down. You choose different notes. Not out of fear, but out of reverence. I'm not asking you to think positive. That's surface level. I'm inviting you to feel deeper. To ask, what am I really rehearsing in my mind each day? Am I rehearsing poverty or possibility? Am I rehearsing fear or faith? You can't fake frequency, but you can be honest, and from that honesty, you can start to rewrite. So the next time you think, money always slips away from me, pause it, not to suppress it, but to revise it, to catch it midair and whisper instead, I am becoming someone who receives with ease. It may feel foreign at first, like trying on shoes that don't yet fit, but wear the feeling often enough, and it shapes to your soul. That's how it begins, not with effort, but with permission. 6. You don't need to change the world, you only need to change your inner state. Sometimes we get exhausted, not from life itself, but from the weight of trying to fix everything, trying to fix the finances, the relationships, the headlines, the noise, the chaos, the timing, the outcomes. It's a heavy burden to carry the illusion that the world must change before we can feel at peace. But here's the truth. 1. I didn't learn from a book, but from life itself. From nights where sleep didn't come. From years where nothing seemed to move. You don't need to change the world. You only need to change your state. Not your job, not your partner, not your bank account, not your past. Your state, your frequency, the field of emotion and energy you're living from. Because the outer world, though it looks vast and solid, is nothing more than a mirror, a reflection of what's being broadcast from within you. And here's the sacred part. You are the broadcaster. I know, that might sound like a lot of responsibility, but it's not meant to overwhelm you. It's meant to free you. Because once you realize you don't have to push the world into shape, you begin to relax. You begin to breathe again. You begin to trust the invisible architecture behind what you see. Think of your reality like water. It takes the shape of the container you pour it into. That container, your state, is what forms the experience, and you have access to it right now. You don't need to control what's happening out there. You don't even need to understand all the moving parts. All you really need to do is pause. Close your eyes and ask yourself quietly, what signal am I sending out? Not just with your words, with your breath, with your posture, with the feeling you're sitting in most of the day. If you're radiating worry, the world will reflect things that justify your worry. If you're radiating ease, the world will start to soften in response. This is not wishful thinking. It's energetic mechanics. Have you ever walked into a room and felt tension without anyone saying a word? That's frequency. Have you ever met someone and immediately felt safe, understood, or at peace? That's also frequency. We know this. Deep down, we all feel it. So imagine what happens when you start to live more consciously in your state, when you choose not just your thoughts, but the emotional space behind them. That's when everything begins to shift. Quietly, without drama, the people who once ignored you begin to listen. The opportunities you once chased start showing up without force. The things that once felt stuck begin to move, not because you wrestled them into place, but because you stopped resisting yourself. You see, you don't need to fight the current. You only need to become the calm that shifts it. It doesn't mean you do nothing. It means you do everything from a different place, an inner place of coherence, clarity, and knowing. One of the greatest shifts in my life came not when I got the external success I was chasing, but when I sat quietly in the middle of a mess and realized I don't need this to be fixed before I feel better. I can feel different now. And let reality follow me, not the other way around. That was the day I stopped living in reaction and started living in resonance. Because when your inner state changes, the quantum field receives new instructions, and reality, like a loyal echo, begins to rearrange in ways you could never predict but always recognize. So today, maybe you don't need to make a plan, or solve the problem, or prove your worth. Maybe you just need to return to yourself, to tune the instrument before playing the song, to become the state before chasing the outcome. Because once your frequency changes, everything else will too, in its own time, in its own way, but always in harmony with you. 7. Your body is the broadcasting device. There's something tender I've come to realize, not in a grand moment of enlightenment, but in the quiet repetition of ordinary days. Your body is not just a vessel you live in. It's the transmitter of your frequency. It speaks even when you don't. We often talk about energy as if it's something out there, something spiritual, cosmic, separate from our physical experience. But the truth is more grounded, and in many ways more miraculous. Your body is the device that broadcasts what you believe, what you feel, what you've been carrying in silence for years. If your mind is the control panel, then your body is the antenna radiating every thought you rehearse, every emotion you embody, into the field around you. And the field listens. You see, energy doesn't hide. It shows up in your posture, your breath, your tone of voice, the way your eyes meet someone else's. It's in the way you hold your shoulders when you walk into a room. It's in the way you eat, how you rest, whether you allow yourself to exhale fully or not. When your body is fed with gratitude, love, and gentleness, it begins to emit a signal that resonates with abundance. Not forced abundance, not the kind you pretend to feel so that the universe will reward you, but a soft, natural coherence that says, I am already full, I am already safe, I am already home in myself. And that's the frequency where wealth, true wealth, feels welcome. Because money, like all forms of energy, is responsive. It is drawn to openness, to trust, to embodiment, not to neediness, not to tension, not to a nervous system stuck in survival mode. This is why you can say all the affirmations in the world, visualize your goals with perfect clarity, and still find yourself in the same patterns. If your body is carrying the vibration of fear, lack, or unworthiness, that's the message that goes out. That's the vibration the field responds to. Have you ever noticed how someone who is genuinely at peace tends to attract opportunities, relationships, even money, without chasing? It's not that they're lucky. It's that their body is broadcasting a frequency that feels safe to approach. It's magnetic not because they're trying to be, but because they're living in integrity with their own energy. I remember a season in my life when I did everything right on paper. I worked hard, set goals, stayed positive. But deep down, my body was exhausted. My breath was shallow. My chest was tight. I was moving from a place of fear disguised as ambition. And no matter what I did, life didn't open the way I thought it should. Everything changed the moment I started listening to my body not just as a machine to be optimized, but as a wise instrument trying to tell me something. I slowed down. I started stretching in the mornings with presence, not performance. I walked barefoot in the grass. I whispered, "Thank you," into my hands as I drank water. I allowed rest to be sacred, not shameful. I gave myself permission to feel pleasure without guilt. And little by little, the signal changed. I didn't have to try so hard. People showed up. Resources flowed. Ideas that used to feel out of reach began to feel obvious. Why? Because the signal was clearer. My body was no longer transmitting fear. It was radiating coherence. This is not about being perfect. It's not about spiritual bypassing or pretending to feel good when you don't. It's about honoring your body as part of the creation process. It's about treating your nervous system as sacred, because it is. It's about remembering that you are not just a thinker, you are an emitter. So today, pause. Notice how your body feels, not what it's doing, but what it's saying. Does it feel rushed? Does it feel ignored? Does it feel loved? Give it what it needs, not as a chore, but as a communion. Breathe a little deeper. Soften your shoulders. Feel the earth beneath your feet. Because when your body feels safe, your life begins to reflect safety. When your body feels loved, and abundance stops being a concept and becomes your baseline. And when your body is aligned with gratitude, the universe tunes in and starts sending back echoes of the signal you didn't even realize you were broadcasting. You don't have to force abundance. You just have to let your body remember what it feels like to already be enough. 8. The journey to wealth begins when you stop trying to become wealthy. There's a strange kind of freedom that arrives the moment you stop chasing. For most of my life, I believed that wealth was something I had to run after, prove myself worthy of, grasp tightly before it slipped away. I'd watch others with more, and something in me whispered, "You're behind." And so, I pushed harder. I set more goals. I consumed more knowledge. I hustled not just with my hands, but with my spirit. But the more I tried to become wealthy, the more distant it seemed. It wasn't until I paused, truly paused, and sat with the unease inside me that I realized something profound. I was not chasing wealth. I was chasing a feeling I thought wealth would finally give me. Safety, worthiness, peace. And that chase was what kept it all at arm's length. You see, when you are trying to become something, you are unconsciously affirming that you are not that thing now. You are vibrating with lack, with separation, with effort, and energy does not lie. The quantum field doesn't respond to your effort. It responds to your state of being. Trying too hard is a frequency of resistance. It's like splashing in water, hoping to stay afloat, when what actually helps you float is letting go. I began to understand that true abundance doesn't come to those who chase it. It comes to those who relax into alignment with it. Not by effort, but by allowing what? Allowing yourself to stop pretending. Allowing yourself to feel what is here now. Allowing yourself to breathe without needing to fix anything. When I dropped the story of needing to get there, I landed here. And here is where all creation begins. In this still point, this quiet now, the energy of wealth is already present, not as a number in your bank account, but as a quality of consciousness. Abundance isn't a future outcome. It's a present vibration. It's in your breath, your softness, your trust. You don't access it by becoming someone else. You access it by finally being fully you. The more I stopped comparing, the more I realized I was never behind. The more I stopped needing to have more. The more I remembered I already had access to what I truly wanted. And in this presence, this sacred, unclenched awareness, money began to flow. Not like a lottery, not like magic, but like a mirror, a reflection of the enoughness I had finally come home to. We live in a world that rewards performance, urgency, striving. But the truth that changed my life is this peace attracts more than pressure ever could. When you stop trying to become wealthy, you stop signaling to the universe that something is missing. And that absence, once the center of your vibration begins to dissolve, in its place is presence, permission, a subtle but powerful shift from, how do I get more to, can I remember I am already enough? And when you truly feel enough, money starts to meet you where you are. You don't have to climb a ladder to abundance. You just have to stop walking away from the inner ground that has always held it. So if you're tired of striving, maybe that's not a failure. Maybe that's the moment of grace. The invitation to step out of the race and into resonance. Take a breath, not to achieve something, just to feel the quiet space inside. And know this. The real wealth was never out there waiting to be claimed. It was within you, waiting to be remembered. 9. You cannot attract what you resent. There's a hidden wall many people build without knowing it. A wall that keeps abundance just out of reach. That wall is called envy. It's easy to feel it. You see someone else living a life of ease. Perhaps they travel where they want, give freely, speak confidently about their success, and something tightens inside you. Not because you're a bad person, but because a part of you still believes you're not allowed to have what they have. And instead of seeing their abundance as a reflection of what's possible for you, you see it as a threat. I know that feeling. I've been there. I've felt the quiet sting of, why them? Why not me? But here's the truth I had to face. You cannot attract what you secretly judge, and you certainly cannot receive what you emotionally push away. Every time we look at someone's success with resentment, we are sending a signal not to them, but to the universe and to ourselves that says, I'm not like that. I'm not worthy of that. That kind of life is not safe. And the quantum field, which responds not to your words but to your vibration, echoes back exactly what you've projected. It doesn't punish you. It simply agrees with your energy. So the question becomes, can you bless what you want? Can you soften the moment you see someone thriving? And instead of hardening, whisper quietly within yourself, yes, that's possible. That's beautiful. Thank you for showing me what's available. That shift, small as it seems, changes everything. You move from resistance to resonance, from separation to permission, from lack to alignment. The truth is, Jealousy is often a disguised form of longing, a deep soul recognition that something within you desires more, but doesn't yet feel safe to claim it. And that's okay. That's not a flaw. That's a place calling for healing. Because when you begin to celebrate what you once resented, you're not just being positive, you're tuning your frequency. You're telling your nervous system, we don't have to be afraid of that anymore. And suddenly, wealth is no longer something you're protecting yourself from. It becomes something you're allowing in. In my own journey, this practice changed everything. I stopped comparing. I stopped guarding my heart every time I saw someone shining. Instead, I opened. I blessed them. I thanked them for being the mirror. And I began to see that the more I softened, the more life responded with grace. Because when you welcome what you want in others and in yourself, you melt the walls that used to separate you from it. And here's the gentle paradox: the moment you stop seeing other people's abundance as proof of your lack, you realize it was never out of reach. It was only waiting for you to stop resisting it. So the next time you feel that familiar pinch, that jealousy, that judgment, pause, close your eyes, breathe, and say softly within, if it's possible for them, it's possible for me too. I choose to bless it. I choose to receive it. This isn't wishful thinking. It's energetic alignment. And alignment, more than effort, is the true currency of manifestation. We don't attract by force. We attract by frequency. And nothing aligns your frequency faster than love, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. So today, try this wherever you see beauty. Bless it. Wherever you see wealth, honor it. And wherever you feel the sting of jealousy, meet it with curiosity, not shame. Because that moment, when handled gently, becomes your doorway, not to pretending, but to remembering what you admire in others is waking up in you. 10. What you long for most is already within you. There's a quiet ache that lives in so many hearts. An ache that whispers, when I finally have enough, then I'll feel safe. Then I'll be at peace. Then I'll be whole. We chase it through promotions, through late nights, through numbers on a bank app that never seem high enough. But eventually, we begin to see the truth. It's not the money itself we're after. It's the feeling we believe money will give us. Security, relief, freedom, enoughness. I want to say this gently, because I know how deeply that longing can run. The feeling you're chasing is not at the end of the journey. It's the place you must begin. The great irony of manifestation is this: the moment you no longer need the thing to feel, the feeling is when the thing arrives. Not because you stopped wanting it, but because you stopped postponing your alignment with it. You see, the universe is not responding to your desires as if they're far-off goals. It's responding to your current frequency, your now state. And that state is shaped not by what you own, but by how you breathe, how you feel, how you relate to yourself moment by moment. There was a season in my life when I had very little materially speaking. I remember looking around and thinking, how can I possibly feel abundant when everything around me screams scarcity? But one evening, sitting by the window, as the sun fell soft across the room, something inside me dropped. It wasn't a grand epiphany. It was a small surrender. I stopped trying to get there and started being here. And in that moment, I tasted something I hadn't known in years: peace. Not because life had changed, but because my energy had. That was the beginning of everything. Because once you realize that safety is a state, not a circumstance, you become free. You begin to understand that the core of your craving is not for more, but for remembrance. A remembering of who you are before the world taught you to measure yourself in status and savings. And who you are at your core is already whole. The question is not, how do I make more? The deeper question is, can I allow myself to feel full? Even now, that fullness is not fantasy. It's frequency, and it becomes your new baseline. when you decide to stop waiting for permission from your circumstances, your past, your fears, and start giving it to yourself. Right now, in this moment, with nothing changed on the outside, you can breathe in the feeling of enough. Try it. Place a hand on your chest. Inhale slowly. And instead of searching, allow. Instead of gripping, soften. Instead of saying, one day, try whispering, today, I am already home. This is not about giving up your goals. It's about no longer making your joy dependent on them. Because when you stop seeking wealth to feel worthy and start feeling worthy as a way of life, wealth begins to mirror you back. Not because you're chasing it, but because you've become the kind of space where it naturally flows. The world might still tell you, success comes from struggle, but life, real life, will whisper. It comes from surrender, from coherence, from claiming what's already yours. And that truth lives in you now, not later, not someday, now. So if you've been chasing something, I invite you to stop, not out of defeat, but out of knowing, because what you long for most is not out there. It's been waiting within you all along. 11. Your breath reveals the frequency you're living in. There is something so simple, so close, that we often overlook it in our search for change. Something that doesn't need fixing or forcing, just witnessing. Your breath, not your goals, not your strategy, not your vision board, but the very way you breathe, tells the truth of what you really believe. You see, a shallow, rapid breath is not just a physiological reaction. It's the body's way of whispering, I'm not safe here. It's the signature of a nervous system stuck in defense, of a mind trying to outrun what it fears, of a soul quietly aching to feel held. But a deep breath, a deep breath is a frequency in itself. It doesn't need proof. It doesn't need to know the outcome. It simply says, right now, I am allowed to trust, and in that trust, the energy shifts. I spent years trying to raise my vibration with affirmations, with effort, with endless doing. But the more I chased abundance, the further it felt, until one day, I paused, and I noticed something I had never truly paid attention to. My breath, it was tight, high, in my chest, always hurried. And in that moment, I realized, no matter how powerful my words were, my breath was still saying, I'm not okay. So I made a choice. Before I tried to earn more, before I tried to manifest better, I chose to breathe like someone who was already supported. Not because I had all the answers, but because I was ready to stop pretending that panic was the path to prosperity. And as I began to breathe with more presence, something happened. I began to feel what I was always searching for: peace. Not because everything changed, but because I did. You don't need to manipulate your outer world to prove you're worthy. You don't need to run harder, shout louder, or vibrate higher. You only need to return to your breath. Because the breath is the bridge between body and soul. It is where energy stabilizes. It is where fear begins to dissolve. It is where alignment begins, not in the future, but now. So if you've been trying to figure it all out, pause, place your hand on your belly, close your eyes, and take one deep, generous inhale, then slowly exhale, as if releasing every belief that ever told you you're not enough. Do it again and again. This is where abundance begins. Not with another book, or plan, or tactic, but with a breath, because the breath you choose is the message you send to the universe. And when you breathe like someone who is safe, the universe responds like a field of mirrors, reflecting back safety, support, and flow. You are not required to hold it all together. You are simply invited to return to this moment, this breath, this stillness, and from that place, something greater can move through you. Not effort, but ease. Not striving, but allowing. You were never meant to manifest from anxiety. You were meant to co-create from presence. And it all begins with the way you breathe. True wealth begins within. There's a moment, quiet and often missed, when something inside you finally exhales. It's the moment you stop chasing, stop grasping, stop trying to prove anything. Not because you've given up, but because you've finally remembered what's real. You don't need another degree. You don't need a new 5-step plan. You don't need luck wrapped in someone else's timing. What you need is already here. It's the awareness that money is not a prize you earn. It's a frequency you embody, and that frequency doesn't respond to what you do. It responds to who you're being in this moment. Right now, if you feel tense, scarce, or fearful, that's okay. It's not wrong. It's just information. It's just life reminding you you can pause. You can breathe. You can come home to yourself again. Because the true work isn't about fixing the outside world. It's about coming into resonance with the feeling that abundance is not out there. It's something you allow from within. So many spend their lives trying to attract money, but energy doesn't chase. It invites. It mirrors. You don't call in wealth by demanding it. You call it in by becoming the kind of space where it feels welcome. If money were a guest, would it feel peace when it arrived at the door of your life? Would it sense gratitude, trust, softness, the kind of energy that says, "You're safe here"? Or would it feel your desperation, your doubt, your belief that it has to prove something to you? You don't need to trick the universe. You simply need to become someone who no longer doubts their own enoughness, someone who breathes deeply, even when the numbers don't add up yet, someone who gives generously from a place of inner fullness, someone who no longer sees wealth as something to win but as something to harmonize with. You want to change your financial reality. Start by changing your emotional home. Start by being the kind of presence money would be drawn to, because money doesn't flow to those who beg for it. It flows to those who live as if it's already here. And when you begin to walk, speak, breathe, and rest from that place, you'll notice something. You won't feel like you're waiting anymore. You won't feel like you're chasing something outside of you. You'll feel settled, anchored, clear. And in that clarity, you'll begin to receive not just more income, but more ease, more synchronicities, more moments of peace that feel like wealth itself. Because the truth is simple. The world doesn't shape your vibration. Your vibration shapes your world. So today, not tomorrow, allow yourself to feel wealthy, not because the bank says so, but because your breath does, because your posture does, because your heart says, "I'm already enough." And that's when money begins to arrive. Softly, surely, naturally, not to complete you, but to meet you where you already are, right here, already whole, already home.